evening. Welcome to the Steel City Huddle podcast. I'm LeeAnn Lohman. I'm joined tonight, as always, by Zach Franciscus. Zach, how are you?
Oh, I'm feeling very good. Little bit of a new setup, so I'm
Yeah.
hoping that it influences the Steelers in a positive direction.
Right. I see the whiteboard has been overhauled for the season from our draft board from before. That's exciting stuff. We're going to get to the schedule a little bit later tonight. It is crazy. Like, I don't know if you're Catholic, then it's like the 16th week in ordinary times or something. And that's certainly what it feels like when you're in the middle of this like weird purgatory after the season ends, like after the Super Bowl, but before like training camp truly begins. But there's a lot to talk about. Last week after we did the show, I was like, man, we're going to struggle to come up with topics for next week. And holy cow, we're going to fill up our entire hour. We have so many little things to get to. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to jump right in with some kind of news and noteworthy tidbits. And start with the happy birthday to the belated Craig Wolfley, who would have turned 67 had he still been with us yesterday. And man, he is a big loss for Steeler Nation. Imagine listening to the Steelers broadcast without him this year is hard to imagine. So happy birthday to him.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, he was one of the...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, Wolf was one of the first people I like fanboyed over because he actually responded to me on Twitter. So he's responding to people in the big Twitter somewhere.
Yeah. He's so nice. I remember meeting him and Tunch at a show that they used to film at a bar in Pittsburgh. I can't even remember the name of the bar. And they were so nice to everybody in the audience. And then with my articles on Steeler Nation, whenever something from Wolf would pop up, he would always comment, add more to the story for me and retweet them for me. He was just such a good guy. Next up, our quarterback is a giant. Here's Will Howard at the rookie event. How is he as big as like defensive lineman and he's in the back row towering over everybody? I should have played the little video clip that showed him walking around among these guys, and it almost looks like it's like a computer image graphic, like a generated image where he's like so much bigger than everybody. It reminds me of like the Hobbits and the Lord of the Rings, but in the reverse. Unbelievable how big he is. And we're going to talk a little bit more about him later because he did sit down with Ben Roethlisberger, and I think there's some similarities there in size. So I think that's kind of interesting.
Not really. And it's not a short draft class. He's just a big person. He's what, 6'4", 246 or 230?
Yeah.
He's a big guy.
Like he's a big guy. He really is. So the NFL has, and I don't want to get into a whole lot of politics, but where things are Steelers related, we definitely want to bring them up. The NFL has kind of paused its initiative on DEI. They're not doing away with it. They want to revamp the system in light of some criticisms it's got from people to make it better. But Art Rooney, and the Steelers have always been famous for spearheading this kind of the Rooney rule is what it got nicknamed, said that it's not going to happen, that there's nothing I can really do about the perception, the way people perceive it, the team's DEI efforts. But he says that they're committed to going forward with those regardless of what anybody else says. And he recognizes that there's work to be done, overall in the league as well as in Pittsburgh and with all teams to make sure that hiring practices are applied fairly. So certainly commend Rooney for continuing to stick to his guns on those things.
Exactly. And if that surprises you at all, you don't know the Rooneys. That's all. That's just simply that you don't know the Rooneys. And also, without all of the work that the Rooneys have done, we would have probably had a really rough Russ Grimm few years. Instead, we have Mike Tomlin going into his 18th season.
Right.
So that there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get it. Like, I get that in other, like with the hiring of Vrabel, do you know what I mean? But I think, look, whether that's about race or anything else, I think that just happens in places. When I was applying to be an administrator, people always had somebody already picked out, right? It wasn't about anything else. Do you know what I mean? So I think that happens sometimes in jobs, but I get the intent to kind of make this a better system. Next up, we've got Caleb Johnson, our new rookie running back, kind of having a little chat with Derrick Henry. I thought this was super interesting. He had an interview yesterday with Missy Matthews, and he talked about how he's been texting with Derrick Henry. He's been very motivational towards him, helping him with the ins and outs of the league, kind of getting his footing. I thought that was really interesting. I know that everybody always says Derrick Henry is such a good guy, and I thought it was really cool to hear that he was taking the time to invest in a rookie that plays for a rival team. Caleb also told Missy Matthews that he feels like his versatility sets him apart. And I've heard other people compare him to like a smaller Derrick Henry. He said he thinks he can be that guy, or he could be a Dalvin Cook type back. And that's what he thinks separates him from a lot of other running backs in the league and in the class he came into. He feels like overall he's a fast back and can be a strong back and also catch the ball out of the backfield and be reliable. I think it'll be interesting to see if he is that kind of 3-down back when the season gets started. And we talked about this a little bit last week, the odds on him kind of taking over the starting role, RB1 from Jaylen Warren, and how likely that is to happen.
And the more that we go along and the more that people see just little blips of him, there's genuine excitement around him. And I think the best thing for this running back room is the fact that everyone's looking at every other offensive position except for that right now. They're kind of in the background and they get to just do their work. And then when the season starts, they get to hit the ground running. Great job for those two.
Yeah.
It could be a really fun duo.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. So I hope that he lives up to all of that hype and excitement. I hope he continues to feel all of those ways. I hope Derrick Henry continues to give him whatever the secrets are to being a successful running back in this league, because we'll take them. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that the NFL is in the process of voting on some rule changes right now. We're going to talk a little bit later, if we have time, about the playoff change, but they did vote to allow players to play in the flag football game in the Olympics, which would next be, I believe, in 2028. And Zach, I know you have some kind of insight with that based on your time living overseas.
So for anybody who doesn't know, I wasn't raised in the country. I was raised in Thailand. My mom had an international school over there. And I had the incredible privilege of starting the football team over there in the high school. And me and another fellow named Bum, who was a Thai gentleman, pretty much were the very early stages of what is now the Flag Football League in Thailand. And it was a wonderful thing. But then I was kind of surprised because a lot of the talk from Pittsburgh pundits and some national ones are that there's really no point in doing this because it's going to be like an NBA dream team in the early 90s and no one's going to be able to stand with the U.S. And while the U.S. is number one in the world, it's not that big of a gap. You have Austria, Mexico, Germany, a bunch of other countries directly below them. China has an amazing football league. So even if it is kind of a blowout, the way you get these kind of sports into the mainstream on an international level is by doing this more often. Other countries are willing to go through that gauntlet of not winning for a bit to learn how to get there. And the U.S. kind of has that torch to pass right now. So take pride in that rather than saying there's no point in it.
I think it's interesting too, because I mean, you can be mad about that, whatever, the dream team stuff, but the dream team was fun to watch. It wasn't like that wasn't fun, right? So I don't know, to me, is there a possibility that this could be like what the Pro Bowl should have been? Do you know what I mean? Or something along those lines where it gets to be a little bit more fun. So hopefully it's that and allows the U.S., where you have, I believe, the best professional football players in the world, the biggest number of them, all together, to be able to kind of showcase those skills and have some fun.
Exactly. And I even if it gets to that point, and I heard names like Lamar Jackson and all that, I don't know if we're going to get people like that. But even if you don't get NFL superstars, there are amazing flag football players. The flag football in Pittsburgh championship just happened. It was brilliant talent. Yeah. It's going to be really fun regardless of whether NFL players are there. And it might be that some bigger NFL players say, you know what, we don't need to shine our spotlight there. Maybe these guys deserve their time, and that's why they're opting out. So
feel like there's a lot of benefit to the professional players for playing. Do you know what I mean? So I realize that the likelihood that you get injured is lower, but it's still there. And so, how do you fit in the time to train for that when training for the NFL has become like a 365-day a year job, where these guys it's not like it used to be in the 70s where you'd go sell insurance on the side or work in a factory in the off season, right? These guys spend their entire year working on their body and training, other than short vacations. And so I find it hard to think that many of them will want to take the time, but I'm not opposed to it if they do.
Exactly. And my last point on this is it's a personal one, because when I was 10 years old, I was given I was supposed to write a letter to some person in authority. I wrote to the Olympic Committee explaining in multiple pages why football should be included there. And I was 10. That was 1994. It's almost here, so I've had to wait a long time, but they finally read my letter.
I just said, they finally opened your letter. Big Poppy brings up that he's glad to see these elite athletes get a chance at gold. And I got to agree. I think winning a gold medal is like the pinnacle of sports. Do you know what I mean? Like greatness. I know that a Super Bowl is up there, but winning a gold medal would be really cool. Yeah. Vicky says she's all about seeing our guys out there in the Olympics, and I got to agree.
Yeah.
Next up is Jack Sawyer, who was also making some interesting comments this week. I love it. He talked about how excited he is to be in Pittsburgh. Says he kind of grew up a Steelers fan. His neighbors were Steelers fans, and so he was really excited to be drafted here. But he said he wanted to go somewhere that's got good vets in the room, and who better to learn from than TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith? I mean, truly no one. Being in this culture and environment, it's definitely a place where I wanted to be. Couldn't be more happy or excited for it. I think we're all excited to have him. Jack Sawyer and Will Howard were both on Ben Roethlisberger's podcast yesterday or the day before or something like that.
That's genuinely exciting. Right there. That shows a characteristic that to me is almost more important than pure raw athleticism, and that's coachability. These guys are coachable. They are moldable, and they want to be coached as well. And I cannot say how valuable that is. So I keep watching that video of them in the national championship pounding each other on the shoulder pads. That's exciting. That could happen. Maybe not this season, maybe not explode this season, but we could see Will Howard and Jack Sawyer doing that in black and golds.
Yeah, it's exciting. I read an article. We'll talk a little bit about Will Howard later, but about how the probability of a third string quarterback playing, and how the majority of NFL teams played at least two quarterbacks over the past several years. So you start to get into this higher probability, even if you aren't planning to play somebody. All right, we can all use a good laugh. So a new report says that Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel will take the number 1 and number 2 reps when OTAs open. So Kenny Pickett will be their starting quarterback. I mean, I don't even know what to say about this. This is the most Browns thing I've ever heard. Unbelievable. But hey, best of luck to him. Best of luck to Dillon Gabriel.
Yeah, I mean, the what I can at least say is at least none of the other 3 that are in the running are criminals. At least there's that. So
right.
But Kenny Pickett, it's such a weird universe we're living in right now that Kenny Pickett went from us to the Eagles. Now he's on the Browns, to the running to be the star. Now the question is, what kind of props do you give yourself if you win the starting job in Cleveland this season?
I mean, probably similar to the ones you're going to give yourself if you win the starting job in Pittsburgh and your competition is Mason Rudolph and, a 6th round draft pick. So probably not much more than that. I mean, certainly we can't, over here in our glass house, can't throw too many stones. But back when Kenny Pickett was drafted, I certainly didn't think in 2025 we'd be talking about him starting for the Cleveland Browns. It's just absolutely bizarre.
It is. And what worries me, and we'll get to the whole thing about the schedule, the weirder the Browns are, the more worried I am that there's going to be some kind of loss that's inexplicable and will somehow make Kenny Pickett look good. There's just a worry that that'll be the game that happens. So
it happens like every year, though. We lose some stupid game to them that we shouldn't lose, like the one in the snow. And yeah, then you're right. Then he's got this bragging right that's beyond irritating. So hopefully Dillon Gabriel will be starting for those games.
Exactly. We just have a tendency to make obscure players look good when they play us, and that genuinely worries me. But you know what? Do what you got to do in Cleveland because we're going to make fun of you a little bit later more. So
we got more for you, Cleveland. Stay tuned. Next up, I thought this was interesting. Oh, the wrong slide. I really vowed not to talk about Aaron Rodgers too much tonight, but then I saw this come out, and apparently Aaron Rodgers' biographer reports that Rodgers is likely to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. I think this came out yesterday. I thought this was interesting. I wonder like how much of a source that really is. Like just because he helped Rodgers write his book, does that really mean he's like dialed into what Rodgers is thinking? Or is this just an opportunity for somebody who knows Rodgers to go on talk shows and say something? I don't really know, but I thought it was interesting. Maybe we'll save that for tweet, for what do you call it? Freezing cold takes or something if he blows it on that one.
Oh, if I'll say this, if he's wrong, it should be on like sub-zero freezing because whenever you texted this to me, it sparked something. I'm like, I got to dive into this, and I read multiple. Shout out to Steelers Depot for doing a really good job of having multiple articles about what this biographer said. And I gotta hand it to him. There's a lot of honesty in what he says about Aaron Rodgers. There was a quote that said, Aaron understands that what happened in New York, and I'm paraphrasing here, it was an embarrassment, and Aaron was the face of that embarrassment. That's not someone who's simply trying to praise another person. And he was explaining why Pittsburgh could be a good place to remodel on all that. But he also said, he after he said the quote about Aaron will probably sign, he said he's sure of that. It's not just something. It's like he's like, I might not talk to Aaron as much as I did when I was interviewing 250 people for his book, but I'm very sure about. He is doubling down on this specific fact, and to be honest, it's right in line with what Mark Caboli is saying, with what multiple other people are saying. I mean, it's whether you're at 90% or 99% if you're a Pittsburgh journalist right now about whether he's going to be there. But he did say that, and I'm trying to remove as much of my bias about Aaron Rodgers before the show as I can. And I had to do it more to read these articles. And he said that Aaron told the Steelers a while ago that he wants to play with them, but he wants to make sure that all of his personal stuff, for example, apparently he was estranged from his family and he's using this offseason to reunite with them. And anyone who has any family issues known, just family alone can be difficult. I love you, my mother.
That came up on that show he did. That came up on that show he did, and he was angry that had kind of his dirty laundry. I think it was his brother did something where he talked extensively about the issues. They even had like a dinner with an empty place set for Rodgers when like he doesn't eat there on a regular basis. A lot of drama. So John said he's digging the attempt to change the culture. They should have a no Pat M show clause in Rodgers' contract if he signs. I agree. Don't think it'll happen, but I agree.
And since my mother's in the chat, I just realized I pointed out, Susan, you were in the chat, not saying you were the troubled family member. I just realized how that played out in my head. I'm like, oh my God, my mother's gonna think I'm calling her out.
It is not you, Vicky. It's not you.
That isn't. So it's when we get to the schedule, I'll get a little bit more into the Aaron Rodgers of it all.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about him. Yeah. Well, it's a day ending in Y, or it was a day ending in Y a couple of days ago. So it should be no surprise that Antonio Brown is involved in like an absolute shitstorm. So I guess that he was at an event, and I only know this like on a surface level, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but he was at an event. And after the event was over, he was outside and some guys jumped him and attempted to rob him. Brown pulled out a gun and fired it into the air, reportedly to scare the guys away. There was another guy there who has had some run-ins with Brown in the past, and he said that Brown was firing a gun when there was children nearby, and it was an unsafe situation, and he was afraid for his life. Antonio Brown responded and said that at the event, he was jumped by multiple individuals who tried to steal his jewelry and cause physical harm. And so contrary to some video circulating, police temporarily detained me until they received my side of the story and then released him. He went home that night. He was not arrested because there were initially some tweets going around that he was arrested for all of this. Be talking to his counsel and attorneys on pressing charges, the individuals that jumped him. He'll keep us posted. Yeah. I don't know. He's wild. He even went on to say somewhere that, like, because of the CTE, doesn't even remember everything that happened. I saw that in another tweet. The video definitely shows him fighting back. But, like, look, if you're getting jumped by somebody and they're trying to steal your stuff, it's reasonable that you would fight back. I don't know about shooting a gun off, but reasonable you'd fight back.
Yeah, and it was, this wasn't like a deserted area. I watched a couple of the videos, and it's hard to kind of piece together exactly what happened. So I'm going kind of based on what I saw. Number one, no, AB, you didn't go home. You went right from there to a live streaming podcast where you bragged about it. So no, you didn't go home. I saw the video where you went on the pod. Number two, there's really no video of AB shooting, but there is a video very clearly of him angrily walking out of a crowded parking garage and then multiple gunshots going off. So it's a terrifying video to watch.
You can
but
see him kicking people while they're on the ground. So look, like I said, I wasn't there, and so I don't know what all happened. Relic says that the people who were a part of the fight say AB attacked them, and that's why it happened. And he believes the people over AB. And look, I just feel like AB's not the most credible source. Do you know what I mean? I think things get out of hand, and I wouldn't put it past him to try to spin it in a direction that's favorable to him, especially after he was firing a gun.
Exactly. And it's not, and AB CTE isn't just your memory, man. That's mood swings. That's rage, the literal definition of rage blackouts. So at that point, you don't want to take sides, but AB makes it very, very difficult in this kind of situation to go, yeah, buddy, you're in the right here.
Yeah. Relic brings up that the person he kicked on the ground was venue security. So, that's even worse. So, like, if that guy was there trying to break up the fight, somehow ended up on the ground, and then you're kicking him. But John brings up a really good point, which is, does he have a concealed carry permit? And if so, why does he? Unlawful discharge of a weapon in public, he's a danger to society. Look, he's been, like, irrational before. Like, there was a video when he was with the football team up in Albany where he assaulted a security guard or something at one of his events. Like, he's had some angry outbursts in the past. So I definitely think that, I don't know, I don't know what state he claims is his state of residence for his concealed carry permit, but he's all over the country. Do you know what I mean? And being able to carry a gun from state to state is not necessarily an easy thing.
Yeah, it's not. And what's worse about the whole thing is it is very, very obvious that the people around AB do not care about AB, because if they did, this would not be happening. And you could see where he's manic, because there's times when he comes out of it and he is a little more lucid. And that's when he's like, man, I wish I wouldn't have left the Steelers like I was, Ben. I'm sorry. Then he goes in and he's like, by the way, Ben, I slept with a member of your family. I did all this. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right. He's all over the place. Big Poppy's ready for the AB reality show. He said, not going to lie, I would tune in from the drama. It's kind of crazy that he hasn't gotten one. I've thought about that before. I don't know. Maybe there's not a network that's willing to, like, actually take on him, because who knows how he would react. He's out of control.
I forget, a while ago, a really long podcast came as someone who really can sits down with underground people and rappers that I don't know. And it was like an hour-long thing. It gets weird because you can see the waves of AB, because he gets excited and then he'll slump down and then he'll mumble and then he'll, like, talk to himself. That's not entertainment. That's not good TV. That's watching someone who needs to be properly diagnosed, not getting the help they need. So I think that a lot of networks looked and like, no, that would cross a line. That's not entertainment. So
yeah. I've dealt with some pretty unhinged mental illness and people close to me before. And I'll never forget a police officer telling me that it's not against the law to be crazy. And, like, that's a really hard thing to hear when you're close to somebody. You're limited on how much you can do to help people until they actually become a danger to themselves or somebody else. So, maybe if a situation like this would lead to AB getting some help, that might be a good thing. Vicky wants to give a shout out to her new friend, Nick, who's joined the Steel City Huddle. Hi, Nick. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. We appreciate it.
My mom's joining from Rhode Island, where she's doing a traveling nurse situation. Shout out to my mom in Rhode Island at the moment.
That is not an easy job. So thank you for being a caretaker. We definitely appreciate that.
Small state, big responsibility.
Yeah. All right, next up, speaking of the Browns, Shelby Harris is excited for the opportunity to play in London and then get the Steelers fresh off their bye week. He feels like this is how you get that mindset back to where it needs to go. When you play these divisional games, it's a kind of take no prisoners attitude. He's excited. He feels like the Browns can best the Steelers despite them coming off a bye right after that. I certainly hope that someone in the Steelers organization uses this as a little bit of fuel to pump the players up for this game because, wow.
Yep, and a sneak peek of what you'll see during the schedule thing. No, Shelby, you won't not be happy with the result of the bye week. Number one, we play really well off of bye weeks,
right?
So why on earth do you want to play us? And number two, we're going to be coming off, win or lose, one of the most emotional international weekends that Steeler Nation has ever been through. That Ireland is very close to home for a lot of people. So no, you're going to get a very, very hyped up or angry Steeler team. So no, you're not going to want to play us, buddy. That just shows in Cleveland that the celebrating, and I have Cleveland Browns all over my family, so I love you all, but it sounds like they're trying to make themselves excited for this season. And yeah.
And look, hey, right? You can't hate on them for trying to get pumped up, right? I mean, it's what you got to do. It's what I would want us to do. You know what I mean? Relic says, "Don't the Browns have one of the hardest schedules?" I don't remember.
I honestly thought, because shout out to Steelers Almighty was doing a really good schedule release show I watched the other day. He actually had all their strength of schedules. So they're fourth hardest.
Yeah. According to this, the Giants, the Bears, the Lions, and the Browns are tied like third, fourth, and then the Steelers were fifth.
Goodness.
But then it depends on whose thing you watch. Do you know what I mean? Whose thing you look at, because then there's somebody else that has the Steelers supplanted by the Eagles. So I guess it depends on what the criteria is.
That's true. If you go by PFF, it's not a schedule; it's just a picture of Myles Garrett.
Yeah. Ron says he thinks they're 13th. Like I said, this one that I just looked up has them listed as fourth, but I don't know. I think it'll get a better idea, I think, once it gets a little bit closer to the season and we really know.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing to know is that
rosters will look like.
It's not last season. Last season was legitimately, like, on a NFL history scale, one of the hardest schedules put together. So we get, no matter how hard the season is, it's a little sigh of relief.
Yeah, it's not going to be as bad as last year. We still have a pretty tough schedule. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I saw this. I thought it was interesting. DK Metcalf, apparently, and I think this is old news, had asked multiple times for trades out of Seattle. Like, it wasn't new when he wound up here. He'd asked multiple times for trades, but an article came out saying that his two top choices were the Houston Texans and the Los Angeles Chargers, but the Steelers were the team willing to give the biggest contract. I don't know how often you hear that next to the Steelers name, willing to give the biggest contract. So there you go. All of you fans that talk about how cheap we are, officially proven we're not the cheapest team.
And we said it last week, and I only have the one statement to reiterate. They will pay people. George, they just didn't want to pay you.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
They didn't want to pay you, because I am genuinely so proud of the Steelers for being the team out of those that said, no, we'll pay you. We'll give you $132 million, other teams wouldn't. So really, really like it.
Right. Okay, moving on. So Mark Cabali was talking on his podcast about George Pickens, and he said that there was a lot of guys on the team, even on the defense. He said you'd be shocked about the names that he heard after the fact. They were pretty much saying, see ya. They didn't want anything to do with him. We talked about this a little bit last week, that we supposed that might be the case, but Cabali confirmed that was the case, that even the big names on the team were over Pickens and all of his antics.
Oh, absolutely. And I just thought of this in the moment. The best way to describe Mark Cabali's face is a human eye roll, because he always looks over. But when he talks about George Pickens, it doubles and triples. And the relief when he talks about not having to deal with him when he did talk to people.
Yeah.
So on an entertainment level, yeah, there was probably fun, but there was a bunch of guys wanting him to grow up, and he didn't, and they got sick and tired of it. So I know, I don't know if we'll talk about it a bit later too, but I know Cam Hayward is definitely someone who is not. The way I heard him on his podcast talk about it, he ain't broken up at all.
Right.
He did his best to like make it sound diplomatic, but you could tell he's just glad he doesn't have to deal with it. So, and
somebody who jumped in on occasions to try to help him, along with some of the other players who did as well. I saw Mason Rudolph make a comment about how he tried to feed him the ball, and he basically said, like, because when you fed George the ball, things were better, or good things would happen, or whatever, so that notion that like you needed to feed him to keep him happy. So Relic thinks it was TJ, Cam, Queen, Highsmith, Wilson, Herbig, Holcomb, and I would say plus the other 31 members of the team you didn't name. I find it hard to believe that by the end, very many people were,
and I'm
battling to try to keep him.
A good comparison, I would think Minka Fitzpatrick, by a lot of people's standards, had a down season, really didn't live up to standards.
Yeah.
He didn't act out. He didn't throw tantrums. He didn't say, use me in this way. Why are you using me in this way? He did his job and just kind of took it. And George learned nothing from him. Same locker room. And I guarantee Minka's a vocal guy. That had to be exhausting for them. So,
you have to know that somebody stepped in with Pickens and said, dude, this is your paycheck, right? Like, this is your livelihood. Like, you could be him. You could be that guy. You have talent. And you have to show up and put in the work. I saw somebody said this week, I forget who it was, I meant to grab it, that they feel like the Steelers downgraded with DK Metcalf, that he doesn't have the natural talent that George Pickens has. And I will argue all day long that I don't care. Like, even if DK Metcalf were slightly lower on the receiving scale than Pickens, if you can't get Pickens to get his shit together, then what good does it do you how talented he is? If he's going to take plays off, if he's going to show up late for games, all of those things, what good does it do you? John asked why the media always tells us the truth after the fact, but not when things were going on.
This in particular, I am Peter King. One of the reasons I wanted to get into sports journalism, it's kind of an unspoken rule. Like, you'll tell me things, but I won't release them all right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of journalists, especially local ones, wait for moments like this when people like Pickens leave. They're like, oh, thank goodness. Here, take it all. Here's everything I know.
Yeah.
And because they have to hold it in, especially in Pittsburgh, it's kind of a British kind of tabloids and the royal family. They only go so far, and they won't push it. It's the same in Pittsburgh. They're not going to push it that far.
Jim Wexell, who was with the Steelers for many years, has written several books. He's on my old podcast. And he was saying that it was like how the media used to have that handshake agreement with FDR not to post pictures of him in his wheelchair. Like, everything that you see that goes on, you can't show everything. Like, this isn't tabloid journalism. This is sports journalism, and it's about what's in the best interest of the team. So if the team isn't interested in some sort of dramatic narrative, the reporters are going to try to do the right thing. I will say, though, when you look back at the comments that many of those reporters made, they made comments that kind of alluded to the fact that people weren't happy with Pickens. I mean, they did report that he showed up late. They did report that, they would question Mike Tomlin at press conferences about what he was doing because Pickens was fighting with opponents or taunting fans or whatever.
We all remember the debacle that was the Kansas City Christmas game, which George showed up late to that. He showed up after the point where they could declare people. They had to guess on whether he was coming.
You don't have that.
Yeah, and if he was anyone other than George Pickens, he would have not played that day, and he most likely would have been off the team. So it's an entire
Relic says, before you move on from Pickens, you have to think, though, different OC every year, not a good quarterback. I feel for Pickens because he could have been a mega star, but instead of helping, he bitched. And I'm right there with you, Relic. I got to say, like, everybody who's watched the show knows that, like, was a huge Pickens fan. I've got his jersey behind me. I wasn't hoping to see this kid leave. I really wanted to see him be successful. I felt like he had a lot of potential. But you got to meet people halfway, and I feel like that's where you start to lose me. Like, if you're not even going to meet people halfway, like, I could even be okay with his frustration. But when behavior started to escalate in 2024 with him, in the fighting and the not showing up, not blocking for your teammates, John says he's lucky he didn't get his ass kicked, not blocking for his teammates. Yes. And it's true. I mean, back in the day, they would have, opened a shop or something.
I will say this. When Anthony Richardson last year said that he was too tired after running around, needed a break, I was just as shocked at that as was George Pickens said I didn't want to block. Yeah. Or when he said, I was worried about injury, all that. So, yeah, a lot of good riddance feelings in Pittsburgh right now about all of that. And, but really, really quick one. My response to Relic is Andre Johnson. If you're going to say you're an amazing receiver and you deserve to be talked about as great, Andre Johnson had horrible crap on offense as far as coordinator, everything is, and he never complained once, and he's Hall of Fame worthy every single day of the week.
Lots of them. Do you know what I mean? Lots of guys are out there playing for really bad teams. And look, I'm not saying he doesn't have a right to be frustrated. You definitely do, But like Relic says, I get it. He's young. He knows he's good. But go take your drama elsewhere. The Cowboys won't be paying you, so good luck. Probably going to end up in the Panthers, Browns, or Miami. I think it'll be very interesting to watch. Like, usually these guys leave Pittsburgh and they don't go on and excel, like they do from other teams. So it'll be interesting to see where he winds up. Well, if you watched the show last week, we have a new little segment called Tweeting Like a Drunk Inzer Uncle. We all have those uncles. If you're from Pittsburgh, you know this uncle. He's the guy that like talks about Stallworth and all the Inzer things from back in the day. And he always has some crazy ass take. So this week's Drunk Uncle take comes from the Cleveland Browns themselves, who put this out on Twitter and then expected no retaliation. The Steelers are a dumpster fire. So I say to you, Cleveland, let's take a look at the last 20 years in the AFC North champs. Where are you? I can't find you. In fact, the last time the Browns won an AFC North title, they weren't even the AFC North. They were the AFC Central in 1989. So math, not my greatest skill, but I think that's 36 years ago.
That's almost a full Zach ago.
A full Zach ago. Right.
Also with a full Zach ago.
The Bengals were terrible for a long time. Like, they had some really bad years. And the Bengals managed to squeak out 6 North championships.
Seriously, I don't often use this particular phrase, but stay in your lane, guys. I mean, you gotta. There's a lot of space left before you play with the big boys. Even the Bengals aren't there, and they were in a Super Bowl a little bit ago. So let's calm down, thinking you're Steelers Ravens right now.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, the Ravens should be offended too. It's even the Bengals. Like, it's absurd. Like, they need to just, like, at some point you just have to recognize that, like, you're the Taco Bell of the NFL or something. The AFC North. Just stay in your lane and mind your own business, because you can't hang. All right, let's switch gears and talk about this schedule that just dropped. I'm going to put it up so we can talk about it a little bit. I'm curious to hear what everybody thinks. Zach, I'm curious to hear what you're concerned about, what you're not concerned about, what are you pleased to see? I was glad to see the Chiefs weren't on it this year. Thank you very much. I thought they were going to be our new Patriots, and we would play them every year no matter what. So what are your thoughts on this schedule?
Well, before I do a little very, very quick, way too early game by game thing, my very first thing to a frustration and a positive. The positive, really, really nice start. Really, really good chance to ramp up. You'll see exactly how nice a little bit later, but what an awful bye week. What a horrible bye week.
That wasn't what I thought, though, because somebody was saying initially that it was going to be week 5, and that had me borderline at the emergency room with a panic attack. So 9, not ideal, but better.
Wait, I'm a little. Are we looking at the same one?
Do I have it up right?
I'm trying to figure out what year we're looking at.
This should be this year's. Did I pull the wrong schedule?
No, because we open at the. It's okay. I was looking. I'm like, one of us is. It's okay. It's not an issue at all. So yeah, we are. It was
week 5, aren't we?
It is week 5. Yeah, it's
How
right
did I
after.
do that?
And it was specifically built in because we have an early international game. The international game
is paired to go with the international game.
Exactly.
Let me try this a different way.
Not a problem whatsoever. So
let's just try this a different way. Tell us about your game predictions while I pull this
back. Okay, not a problem. So I went through based on which quarterback we're going to have. So I'll just let people know my prediction if Mason Rudolph starts for us is 9-8. And I tried it many different ways. I couldn't come up with another number, and I hate that 9-8 came out of my mouth, but it did. So if Aaron Rodgers comes, the biggest thing about Aaron Rodgers, and had to take the bias off the window, he's probably going to bring some other wide receiver. He's going to bring Alan Lazard from New York. He's going to bring Romeo Doubs possibly from Green Bay. Talks of Christian Watson. I wouldn't bet anything on that one, but we're going to get another wide receiver that Aaron likes. And that could matter if he is our quarterback, whatever he decides to do. So if Mason Rudolph is our quarterback, I don't think we're making the playoffs. I'm being 100% honest. I don't think 9-8 in this kind of AFC makes the playoffs. So taking my bias out of the window, Aaron Rodgers comes. Very, very first week will be the New York Jets, and we win. Aaron Rodgers is very, very happy about that. Follows it up because the Seahawks are not as good as everybody thinks they are. We beat them. We go on to beat the New England Patriots as well because that is going to be really fun seeing how far they've fallen. This is one that I had to go back and forth on a bit, but I don't think J.J. McCarthy knows what he's going to go up against when he takes on our defense. And so I genuinely believe, and this is where I'm going to throw it back in his face, that is 5 straight wins to start the season. I have done it so many different ways. I am so confident that we have the ability to do this. The problem is it gets really, really rough after that. So this is we'll pause for a second. LeeAnn, what do you're nodding a lot. So I thought I was crazy for this, but am I not as crazy as I thought?
I don't know. Like if anybody's ever seen me on like any podcast, I do Joe's podcast, the Donut Guys podcast every year, and we do a schedule prediction, and he just makes fun of me every year that he'll just put like a win next to every game because I have such a hard time like saying we're going to lose. I usually split the AFC North games, feel like we'll win one of those and lose one of those, but I look at this schedule and yeah, I'm with you. I feel really confident about those first several games, and I think it's a good thing, right? Because if we can start off strong, if we can beat the Vikings, give them their first international loss, I think that would be huge, huge for morale, recover from that awful London game, and go into the bye week with something strong. I think we have a really strong shot at getting this season off to a good start because it does get tougher later.
I 100% believe that. And my problem is a lot of the games where I gave Aaron Rodgers credit for being the difference in the game, I kind of picked almost at random that it's going to be whatever you want to call it, Aaron Rodgers magic or energy or whatever. It's going to be that. But then legit, just it's Aaron Rodgers better than Mason Rudolph. That's simply just a fact of nature. As much as I don't want to say it, it is. But then I looked at it again. I'm like, wait a second. Those are late in the season. And in my head, I mean this, and I will say it again. And even if he signs it, Aaron Rodgers not starting more than 50% of the game for the Steelers. He's 40 years old. He's not, and he's what, a year and a half, 2 years removed from Achilles.
Yeah.
So I genuinely believe we're going to lose to the Bengals next. I like Aaron Rodgers to win both of his revenge games against the Jets and the Packers. I like us to beat the Colts. But then it gets kind of weird after that because I genuinely believe at this point Mason Rudolph has taken over and we start losing a lot more games. We lose to the Chargers. We lose both games to the Bengals. And we beat the Bears. And going into this awful last stretch, we are now 8-3, which is really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Last year, we were in a really, really good place. And after that, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to make a lot of friends after this because Aaron Rodgers is not playing a lot of these games. We're going to lose to the Bills. We're going to lose to the Ravens. We're going to lose There's 3 consecutive losses for how many years in a row?
Oh my God! We can't even deal with talking about that.
I know.
That same conversation again this year with.
We're luckily we get to avoid that, but just a point there. And unfortunately, after that are the Lions, and that's another loss. So that's 4 straight losses. We are now 8-7. We will beat the Browns, 9-7, and then we're going to lose, and now we're 9-8. So it doesn't even matter with Aaron Rodgers because he's not playing all the games. Steelers, and this is again way too early. Way too early. Tomorrow we could trade for, but 9-8 seems right on the button. And unless the AFC collapses, that's not a playoff spot. So I'm not trying to bring anybody down. There's a lot of reality. I think we need to accept this year as Steeler fans that a victorious season is playoffs and a playoff win, not a playoff run, a playoff win. That's victorious to me. Right. But unless a lot changes, there's 9-8. They're actually looking at now it's 8-9. Oh no, I'm sorry. 9-8. I forgot we beat the Browns again. So
I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I struggled. I looked at it early like you did. I'm not going to go into doing all my games because I think it's too soon for me to.
Way too early. Yeah.
Like 2 quarterbacks in my head. But I struggled to find that much of a difference between Rodgers and Rudolph because I do think that there's the potential that Rodgers could be hurt, and in which case it's Rudolph. And so then what's really the difference? John is dead on with his assessment that I'm a Steelers egg fan, hard on the outside, soft in the middle. I own this totally what a softie I am. I am the ultimate optimistic fan. I wear it proudly like a bag of courage.
That's true. And make no mistake, people, that this is me trying so hard to be unbiased. Me and LeeAnn go into every single Steelers game the exact same way. Yeah, well, this is winnable. Every single. Otherwise, why watch it? If I go into a game, even Christmas, I had convinced myself we had a chance.
I did too. I got myself winning. I had us winning games at the end of the season. We were losing everything. Everybody thought I was crazy. I really thought we had a shot. I kept thinking we couldn't keep losing. We're not going to keep losing this many games, right? This is crazy. All right, let's talk a little bit about Mason Rudolph. He was on a podcast with Mark Cabali and Mac recently and talked a little bit. I know you watched the show. I only caught bits and pieces of it. You said it was kind of the usual Mason talk, right? Positive, low key, no drama, typical what you expect from Mason.
It was. I mean, Mason's been doing this a long time, and he's very good at what Mike Tomlin likes, which is saying a lot without saying anything.
Yeah.
A lot of it was poking fun at Mark Cabali, laughing at apparently Cameron Hayward will not stop giving his grief about his goatee. I think the most big reveal was that the reason he has a goatee is because he developed short-term adult alopecia for a little bit, and then when it went away, he decided I'm gonna let myself go to celebrate, and he grew in his goatee. So what he said, yes, it was a whole thing. So the goatee for him, it has, I guess, some deeper meaning than just a goatee.
Okay.
But there was the interesting part about Aaron Rodgers having taken time earlier to talk to him in his career, and that he seemed like a nice guy, and there was one quote that he said with a glint in his eye, and I was like, "You're lying through your teeth." He said, "I've never had trouble making friends in the quarterback room," and then he grinned. I'm like, "You're lying through your teeth. Ben didn't like you at all."
Right, you're a damn liar, which is interesting because Will Howard, I said earlier, was on Ben's podcast, right? And he's been asked when he talked to the media this week about that, about meeting Ben and about all of those things. And he came out and talked about how great Ben's been with him. Do you know what I mean? How Ben's been willing to step up and kind of help mentor him and all of these things. And I thought that was really interesting, considering that was not the Ben that we saw in the past. So has Ben grown up a little bit? Is this as dramatic as Ben poking at Mason a little bit by supporting Will Howard? I don't know. But I thought it was really interesting. He had a lot of nice things to say about him. in a couple of different interviews that he's done lately. And I pulled this one. He said, what he thinks about Ben. He said they need a gritty guy. Big Ben was that guy. He was Pittsburgh. He was the Steel City, the blue collar, the gritty guy, and I want to be that too. And man, I don't know. Every time you hear that kid talk, it's hard not to like him more and more and more and more, right? He just sounds so Pittsburgh every time he opens his mouth.
He does, and the little bit of a downside for me is he's making it harder for me to want the best for him, because the best for him is to not play at all this season. The best situation for the Steelers overall is to figure out whatever muddled mess you got with Rodgers, Rudolph, let them do their thing, and Howard sits and learns.
Yeah.
Because he could be really good, because people forget Ben wasn't supposed to be Ben. Ben was supposed to be the least successful out of all the ones taken in that era. And we got lucky with the fact that he was able to jump in and do what he did. I don't want that for Howard. So I'm doing my best to balance it, because he is genuinely making me want to run through a wall every time he talks. I'm like, oh, you're an exciting human being. You're what we need. But yeah, that's true. And a comedian that I won't name because they're an awful person, but they said that when my kids come back from their grandparents' house, they say how nice they were. And I'm like, those aren't your grandparents. Those aren't my parents. Those are grandparents. And they're trying to get into heaven now.
Right, which is John's point. And I didn't even think about it that way, but he's exactly right. So I guess, Howard isn't a threat to Ben, so you can be as nice to him as you want to be, because, he's on his couch drinking imported beer and eating from his private chef Evan and not worrying about what's happening in the Steelers locker room anymore.
I wonder what Mason feels about it. Is it like all those Disney movies you see where the dad who didn't do enough for the kid is a grandfather now, he does enough for the kid, and then the dad of the kid's like, why did you do that for me? And it's a whole thing. Is that what Mason's now? Ben's like, you could do that. I think that's funny if that is. But Mason genuinely seemed, there was a confidence. I genuinely got a little more excited than I expected to when I saw Mason, because I've watched interviews with Mason before, and he seemed a little too tense, a little too aware of himself and about this and that. He just seemed like calm and relaxed and ready to go. And not only that, very aware of the situation he's in. And he said specifically I'm paraphrasing, but he said the quarterback that's getting paid most is going to dictate the roster. And if that isn't understanding your situation, because even if Aaron Rodgers only paid $10 million, I think Caboli said that on the thing, even if he only paid $10 million, that's still a lot more than Mason's being paid.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we've said it all along. I mean, Mason knew he was coming back to Pittsburgh to be the backup quarterback, right? So there wasn't even this conversation like in other years where it's like it's going to be this major competition and all of these other things. I think Mason is genuinely a good guy. So. All right, one more topic tonight. Let's talk a little bit about this proposed change to the schedule. The owners will vote next week. They tabled this. This came up from the Lions. I want to make sure, I hope I get this right. Amon-Ra St. Brown brought this up after the playoffs last year, or after the season last year. The Lions were 14-2, and they were facing the Minnesota Vikings, who were also 14-2. And the team that won that game was going to get a bye week and home field advantage. And the team that lost that game was going to go on the road to play some other team with like a 9-8 record that won their division. And he's saying it just doesn't make sense. It's not fair to him. So the Lions proposed to change. I guess the NFL owners tweaked it a little bit and tabled it for the time being, but they're supposed to vote on it next week. And it's going to change the seeding. So if it's passed, each conference gets 4 division champs, 3 wild cards, 7 teams total, and all 7 seeded by regular season record. The NFL is hoping that this helps improve competitiveness in week 17 and 18, meaning you won't be resting your starters because it's no longer just about winning your division, right? You've got to improve your standings within your conference. And then after that first round is over, teams will be reseeded. So the number 1 seed always plays the lowest remaining seed. So I'm curious, Zach, what your thoughts are on this. Anybody watching the show, I'm curious to hear whether you guys love this or hate this. I think in a lot of ways, like I keep hearing players talk about it. And I think like I get behind them. I'm like, yeah, that's a terrible idea. Like, then what does it matter to win your division, right? Why do we have divisions if winning it doesn't matter? And then there's another part of me that thinks, but they're right. It's not fair if you go and win all these games and you're in a really good division, like let's say the AFC North, and you've got multiple teams that are really strong. And now one of those really strong teams is back a game and playing 9-8 Tampa Bay or something. It happened to the Washington Commanders a few years ago. They were terrible, won their division and got the bye week and all of that. And while other teams that have much better records were traveling to play them.
Exactly. And an important thing to understand about this is that the NFL does not move quickly with things. They don't have knee-jerk reactions. Right. Because I remember if that was true when, what was it, the Saints got into the playoffs with a 7-9 record a while ago, then they would have changed it right after.
Yeah.
What I'm about to say, I need to preface it by saying I'm not about to make light of the situation that happened health-wise with this person. I simply believe what I'm about to say. This is the Damar Hamlin rule. What happened with Damar Hamlin and the fallout from that and the resulting, we don't know what happened with the game. And it changed so much about two of the top teams in the NFL and where they were going to be and how their season ended. That is now what happened very, very soon afterwards.
So you think this has more to do with those situations than with like Amon-Ra St. Brown and the Lions just putting this forward? You think this is something that's been bubbling?
I think the Lions may have wanted this before, but realized that they had a chance within like a 1.5, 2 year span of the Damar Hamlin thing happening. And they had to do it just right. And I think they understand the fallout of that. And a situation like that is one of the few things that could force the NFL to move quickly. Right. And honestly, from what I hear, a lot of people are saying it has a good chance. So would you be more surprised if this passed or if they banned the tush push?
I'd be more surprised if they banned the tush push. I don't think they're banning the tush push.
Oh, I hope you're right. Because I don't think it's fair that an NFL team got something so right that other teams could if they really tried to.
Yeah.
But now other teams are all hurt about it and they're like, you know what? Now you can't play. I want our ball back. It's not a cool way of doing it. So it's ridiculous. So I hope you're right.
I'm as much as the next guy. Like I hate the tush push when it's against the Steelers and they're shoving Jalen Hurts across the line, and I'm like, God damn it, why can't we do that? But you're right. I mean, if our quarterback wanted to squat 575 pounds or whatever Jalen Hurts does, and you know, Zach Frazier wanted to be able to work that out with the other linemen and be able to get him there, then they have the right to do that. It'd be different if it was only the Eagles that were allowed to use it, right? It's not unfair if the advantage is available to everybody and you can't.
Yeah,
you know.
And make no mistake,
do what Tom Brady did. That wasn't an unfair advantage.
And it might look easy and all that, but what's his name? Jason Kelsey was talking about it, that he is so happy he doesn't ever have to do that again, because it's literally massive men crawling on you. My sister Melissa, who I had the pleasure of coaching for 4 years in Thailand as my center, said she hated quarterback sneaks because she's like, I'm going to get kneed in the back of the head. I'm going to get something, and you just kind of deal with it. And so they earn the right to be that good at it. Don't take it from them. So I hope you're right.
I agree with you. I don't have a problem with it. As far as this goes, like I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. Do you know what I mean? Like I can sort of see both sides of it, and you know, I'm sure at some point it'll screw the Steelers, and then I'll be mad about it. But you know, right now, like I do feel like it's fair. Like we've been that team, not recently, but we've been that team with a good record. Do you know what I mean? And you know, I could see that happening to us and us being the ones on the short end of the stick. So if it's something that could potentially help us, you know, out, and then or help other teams make things more fair, more equitable, it makes sense. I also like the idea of teams not really resting their starters. I think there's, not for us personally, I want to rest ours, but for other teams, I don't want them to rest theirs. So I think it'll be interesting because, you know, 2 more games if you're Kansas City and you're performing so well, you know, or the Philadelphia Eagles and you're playing your starters week 17 and 18 is 2 more opportunities for injuries. Yep. So Jones from Kansas City was complaining about his neck in the Super Bowl. I figured it would come up again. A serious neck injury and a lawsuit could be coming. I think they're going to be looking at more and more things like that in recent, coming up.
100%.
So. Well, we appreciate you guys joining us tonight. We need to sign off. If you could do us a favor and please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, we would really appreciate it. You can also, if you're watching this after the fact, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about the schedule, about the proposed rule changes, and about all the other drama and chaos that's going on surrounding the Steelers. We will see you next Tuesday at 7 p.m. for our next show. Have a good night, everyone.
LeeAnn and Zach would like to thank you for tuning in to the Steel City Huddle podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a thing.